So, here's a question for you. To understand gender, sex, and sexuality, do we necessarily need to look at another's bare anatomy or sexual relations to gauge their gender, sex, and sexuality? How do we come to understand these things, right? We do not need to look at someone naked or ask them, okay, what are your genitals? So we can try to understand your identity to assess who they are. No, you simply come to understand someone's gender, maybe someone's sex and sexuality by not only what they communicate those things are to you for, but also how they simply perform their gender, perform their sex, perform their sexuality. Okay, so this largely has to deal with observation, okay, as well as communication. Now let's get into the tenets of communication. How do we come to understand these things? Communication is all about two things: language and performance. So language deals with words, whereas performativity deals with actions. Words are all about what you say and how you say it. Performativity is all about what you do and how you do it. Okay? So, language. These are symbols that make up words. Okay? Such as writing je t'aime. Now, you wouldn't know what that means. This is a French language. You wouldn't know what that means unless you understand French. And also te quiero. You wouldn't know what that means unless you understand Spanish. To a foreign speaker, this just looks like chicken scratch because there's no meaning assigned to it. And that's where communication comes in. You give meanings to these symbols that make up these words. Okay, so je t'aime and te quiero both mean I love you in English. And what does these words mean, I love you? If you've never heard this phrase before, you still have to assign meaning to it. Just because you're speaking in the same language with someone doesn't mean that you automatically understand the meaning of each and every sentence that they're saying to you. You have to be able to assign meaning to those phrases. So, I love you can mean that I care for you deeply and will do nearly anything for you. I will do anything to propagate and perpetuate your existence. I will do anything to make sure that you are fed and cared for every day, that you know that someone out here has feelings for you. That's love, right? And so, what love means, and more so than saying what you do for a person or how you feel about a person, love is to also communicate through actions, what you do for that person. So, in conclusion, words have no meaning until people give them meaning. Okay? And this is all related back to gender, sex, and sexuality. How do we come to understand those terms, those concepts, through assigning meaning to them? Okay? And also, let's talk about semantic change. Meaning is not necessarily solely in the words, but is largely contingent upon or dependent upon speakers, context, and the environment. So there's a colloquial phrase within the African American community that can be said in various different ways, along with many other phrases. But an example that I want to give you is you good. Okay. So as you can see here, the verb is missing. You are good. So oftentimes in African American vernacular English, the verbs are also often missing from slang speech or informal speech, speech that you wouldn't necessarily speak in formal or professional settings, but only in informal settings or people that you're deeply close to. So you good. That can be said in different ways, such as, ooh, you good? And that will communicate concern. versus you good, which is more direct. That will communicate the end of a conversation versus you good versus that's okay. You good, that's okay. Okay. So there are many ways to say one phrase and it have different meanings. Okay. So when it comes to, again, communication and also concepts, both tangible and abstract, you do not come to easily understand them unless meaning is assigned to them. Just as with actions and behaviors have no meaning until people give them meaning. So, performance, that's the process of doing the meaning, okay? So, you can have these abstract concepts as just gender, sex, and sexuality, but how do you perform it, okay? And we saw that example with the delineation and differences between Prince and The Rock. How do they perform masculinity in different ways? Prince is more androgynous in his masculinity or demonstration thereof, his gender performance, whereas the Rock is more hypermasculine in his gender performance, whereas Prince is more androgynous. So that's an example of how the doing of gender can differ between two or more individuals or two or more communities. Now, let's get into cognitive schemas. What are they ideologically? So, cognitive schemas are these mental categorization systems that help us organize how we understand and view the world. So, our viewing of the world determines how we interact with it. And then, how our interaction determines how we ultimately influence and impact the world. So we literally have the power to change the world in order to induce institutional equity and equality for all, which is the core of feminism. Now, you may have heard of feminism as a monolithic concept. However, feminism has multiple different doctrines and meanings and different types of strategies in order to execute institutional equity and equality for all. Okay. And we will definitely get through those different types of feminisms throughout the semester. But I really want you to understand that based upon how we conceptualize the world and understand it, that conceptualization has a direct impact on how we interact with the world. And then how we interact with the world, that definitely influences and shapes our world. Okay, through your impact. So do not ever think that you do not have any power to influence and transform the world because you literally do. Our societies have been doing it for generations. So cognitive schemas influence language and communication. Again, these symbols that make up words and the meanings that we assign to those words. So I want you to think about how may we gender language? What about how may we gender communication or gender performativity or even gender objects, animals, food, and drinks? We do it in various ways. So we do it through using androcentric language, okay, or male-centered language. Also with professional titles, feminine, masculine, gender neutral forms in various languages such as French and Spanish, etc. Those are the ways in which we gender language. So if you're in a co-ed setting and someone wanted to get the attention of this co-ed group, you may have heard regularly someone refer to you all as guys. Hey guys, come over here. Often not, androcentric language is used to refer to both all men settings and co-ed settings. You do not hear of someone referring to a co-ed group that is comprised of men, women, and other genders as ladies. Hey, ladies, come over here. Or hey, girls, come over here. No is often a default to the androcentric language. Hey, guys, come over here, right? Now, people may use gender neutral language with saying, hey, you all, come over here. Or hey, people, come over here. That's possible. Okay. So definitely remain cognizant and acknowledging of how people gender language. So we gender communication when speaking to different types of groups of people. So you may talk with authority or with a deeper voice in a conference room or in a business room, or you may speak with a higher octave or a softer voice to a group of children. Why the difference? Because when you're handling business, it's often socially constructed, this business setting, as a masculine setting. So both men and women have been shown to use a more authoritarian voice that is deeper in octave, that's more assertive in tone when conducting business. Whereas handling children, that's often socially constructed to be a feminine chore or a feminine responsibility. So both men and women have been shown to speak to a group of children, especially a group of children that's non-related to them, as more softly in a lighter tone. We also gender performativity as well. Think about how we masculinize or feminize clothing, jewelry, and hairstyles, right? So, and this has changed the meanings that we associate with clothing, particular pieces of clothing, jewelry, and hairstyles change over time. So think back in the 80s when it was perfectly fine for men to wear form-fitting clothing, like those skinny jeans and tight shirts, and even crop tops back in the 80s for men. However, throughout the 90s and the early 2000s, it was more socially acceptable for men to wear more looser fitting clothing. And of course, this is also contingent upon ethnic groups, class groups, etc. So it's not just solely a gender issue here. We also must consider social economic class, ethnicity, and culture. So think about long hair versus short hair. Western society often feminizes people with long hair because long hair is associated with women within Western society. We have gendered hair. And also short hair, on the vice versa, is socialized to be considered masculine in both men and women. So that's how we gender performativity as well. Think about jewelry. Skinnier pieces of jewelry or lighter jewelry, often feminized, whereas bulkier, heavier jewelry is often masculinized. Think about how we gender objects, animals, and food. Okay. So, cats often associated with femininity and dogs often associated with masculinity due to the abilities of both different types of animals. Cats are socially constructed as being soft and sweet, etc., whereas dogs are socially constructed as being also sweet, but they're also functional for outside activities such as sporting and hunting and playing rough games. You can't really co-hunt with a cat or play sporting with a cat or even go hunting with a cat. Sure, you can, but not to the degree and as the probably more ease of training as with dogs, right? So, cats often relegated to inside the home and dogs relegated to outside the home. And what's also gendered to being inside the home and outside the home? Men and women. Women are often socialized across various societies to be keepers of the hearth, to be homemakers, to take care of the home, whereas men are socialized to be external to the home, take the trash out, mow the lawn, cut the grass, all external activities. Also to focus on working and bringing home the money to take care of the household, an external activity. Again, we can connect that to cats and dogs. Also, male and female connectors, fasteners. Okay. The plugs that receive the fastener often coded as a female connector. The plugs that often have the extended metal pieces to go into something else, considered the male fastener. Okay. So you can even break this down into desserts and alcoholic beverages. Think about cocktails and martinis, these drinks that are small in volume and in daintier glasses, often coded as feminine, whereas beers and darker liquors and yeah, darker liquors and beers often masculinized and also in heavier, bulky glasses, right? So we associate this dark light dichotomy with men and women respectively, and this light heavy dichotomy with women and men respectively, etc. So there are many ways in which we gender language, communication, performance, and objects, animals, and food. And this is let's see here. Yes, I want to skip the previous slide. So this is a good point to stop. We will actually cover the mythical norm probably in 2 weeks later on this semester. So thank you so much for your time and attention. And I look forward to reading your responses for your learning assessments.